Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com and welcome to episode 31 of my video train blog series. Okay, it's early May 2013 and the first thing I want to talk about briefly is layout progress. I really haven't made that much progress on the layout over the last month or so. I've put up a few trees here and there and so forth, but nothing major. And the reason is because I've been doing other things. One of the main things I've been doing is a lot of weathering of my trains. I've been doing a lot of airbrush weathering over the last month. And actually, in the next episode, episode 32, I'm going to show you some examples of the weathering that I've been doing. The other thing that I've been doing is some electronic upgrades to some older trains, and I'm going to show you what that's all about in just a couple minutes. Really, the only layout progress that I've made over the last month or so is that I've added some more display shelving to the layout room. So let me show you that real quick. Here in the main room, the top three shelves there have been in place for a while now, but I've recently added a fourth shelf. So the bottom shelf with the UP Centipede and the Southern Crescent Limited on it is new. And I'm probably going to add one more shelf below that, but that's about as far down as I'm going to go with the open shelving. And the reason is because during the open houses that I have every year for the layout, there are quite a number of small children who come to see the trains. And although I like them coming to see the trains very much, as we all know, small children sometimes tend to want to touch what they see. And so in order to avoid any accidents, I don't want the open shelving coming down low enough to where it can be within reach of small children. So that's about as low as the open shelving is going to go. And then anything below that will be shelving that has either glass or plexiglass in front of it so that you can see the trains, but small children can't touch them. Over on this wall right here, I'm currently in the process of building a big wooden display case that's going to go from ceiling to floor and hold nothing but diesel engines, because it's not very wide over here. The display case itself will be about 2 feet wide, which is perfect for diesel engines. Now, because the case is going to go all the way down to the floor, I'm going to have a hinged piece of plexiglass on the front of it so that even though there will be engines down low, they will be out of reach of small children. So it should be pretty cool when it's all done, and it should hold about 14 or 15 diesel engines. I've also recently added some new shelving to the hallway room. These 4 shelves right here are brand new and they're looking pretty good. I'm probably going to add one more shelf below the last one, but that'll be it because once again, I don't want to go too low with the open shelving. I'm also going to extend this top shelf across the doorway here to get a little more storage there. And then over here, I've added a shelf above these doors. It's got nothing but gen sets on it, pretty cool. And then I'm also going to add a shelf right here across this door, which will be about 4 feet long. The only other thing I want to talk about right now in terms of layout progress is the big 20-foot trestle that's going to go across the main table here. A lot of you guys have been asking me when that first section would be in. It's not in yet, obviously, but it is being built as we speak, and right now, I'm hoping to have it in place by the end of the month. So we'll see how that holds out, but of course, no matter when it comes in, the minute that it comes in, I will post a video on it. Okay, so that's it for layout progress. Like I said, there's not a lot of stuff to show you right now, but that will change over the next few months as I gear up for the upcoming open houses this year. So now what I want to do is show you some of the new items that have come in recently, and also talk with you about some of the upcoming product reviews that I'm working on. Here's the first new item that I want to show you. This is the Lionel Santa Fe 484 Northern. And if it looks a bit familiar, that's because I already showed you one of these engines in episode 30 of my video train blog series. Here's the one I showed you in that episode when it was brand new. And in that episode, if you recall, I said that I liked this engine so much that I might get a second road number. So I did get a second road number, and there it is. So now I have 2 of these. Now, this will be the next product review video to be up on YouTube. I'm in the process of reviewing this engine right now, so that video should be up in the next week or 2. And in that video, we'll take a look at the 484 Northern as well as the 6 additional matching heavyweight passenger cars that Lionel made to go with these engines. Here's another new addition. This is the Lionel Southern Pacific GS2 Daylight, and as you can see, it's absolutely beautiful. They offered this in their 2012 catalog, and then finally delivered it a couple months ago, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It looks great, sounds great, and runs great. The only downside is that it doesn't have the smoking whistle, but other than that, it's amazing, and I will be doing a review on this, so look for that in the next month or so. Here's a great new addition. This is the Amtrak Turbo Train made by MTH, and they put this out a few months ago, and it's outstanding. It's an amazingly detailed model, and I can't wait to do a review on this to show you everything it has to offer. Now, the set itself comes with 3 cars, but MTH makes an additional car that you can purchase, so I purchased the additional car, so that's why this set has 4 cars instead of 3. I also did a quick nighttime run video of this a couple weeks ago. It's like a 30-second clip, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. I will be doing a full review on this, and that should be out in 3 or 4 weeks. Here's another new MTH addition. This is the Sioux Line Transfer Diesel that they shipped late last year. It's a fantastic engine, and I got this for 2 reasons. First of all, up until now, believe it or not, as big as my collection is, I've never had anything Sioux, so this is the first Sioux Line item that I've ever purchased. But the main reason I got this engine is because it's an obscure, ugly diesel. There were never a lot of these made, they weren't very popular, and MTH from time to time likes to do obscure models, and when they do, I always try to order them, so that's why I ordered this one. It's just a weird looking diesel that's unlike anything else I have. Now, of course, I will be doing a full review on this. That'll likely be up in 2 or 3 weeks, right after the Lionel 484 Northern review. Here's the last new item that I want to show you. This is a standard gauge number 8 pay-as-you-enter trolley that was put out by Lionel Corporate Tinplate, or MTH, late last year in 2012. And it's a reissue of the original Lionel pre-war number 8 pay-as-you-enter trolley that was made around 1910 or so. And as you can see, it's a beautiful recreation of the original tinplate model. And while it's all old school on the outside, on the inside it's all modern technology with ProtoSounds 2 and MTH's digital command system. So I'll be reviewing this in the near future as well, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, the next thing I want to do is have a little bit of fun and show you some of the new electronic upgrades that I've been doing on some of my older trains. Here's the next thing I want to show you. This is a post-war Lionel 2343 Santa Fe diesel that was made around 1950 or 1951. I first showed you this engine in episode 24 of my video train blog series, and as I said in that video, this is sort of a work in progress. From a mechanical point of view, I've been able to get the engine working perfectly, but as you can see, cosmetically, there's still a lot of work left to do. But what I wanted to show you today is an upgrade that I made on the inside of this engine. You know, I love post-war engines, but one of the drawbacks is that I can't run them on my big layout because my layout is a 100% command control equipped layout using Lionel's Tmcc/legacy system and MTH's DCS system. And so up until now, the only place I could run this engine was on a small loop of conventional track that I've got underneath my layout on the floor. But what I've done now is I've upgraded this engine to TMCC. So now it has Lionel's TMCC command system on board so that I can run this engine on the big layout and I can control it with my Lionel Legacy remote. To do the upgrade, I installed what's called an AC commander board on the inside of the engine. The AC commander board is a TMCC upgrade module that's manufactured by the Electric Railroad Company. The Electric Railroad Company used to be its own company, but I believe it's now owned by Lionel. You can find their website at www.electricrr.com. And for the last few years, if you look in the back of any Lionel catalog, you'll see a page that shows some of the products made by the Electric Railroad Company, and they make a whole variety of different upgrade modules for TMCC, for sound, for cruise control, all sorts of stuff. And so for this particular upgrade, I used the AC Commander board because it allows you to upgrade a post-war engine with an AC motor to command control. Now, the upgrade board that I used comes in 2 different varieties. There's an AC Commander and a DC Commander, and they're exactly the same except that the AC Commander is used to upgrade older engines that use AC motors like the old Pullmore motors and post-war engines, and the DC Commander board is used to upgrade more modern engines that have DC motors. So what I'm going to do now is take the shell off the engine and show you the AC Commander board and explain a little bit more about it. Okay, I've removed the shell, so what we've got is the original electrocoupler that's always been on the engine, the original light bulb, and the original motor. But then everything back here, like the old mechanical E-unit, has been removed, and in its place is the AC Commander package. The AC Commander package consists of these 2 boards. You've got the main board below, and then the R4LC board that connects to it. Then you've got a run program switch, a TMCC antenna wire, which I've mounted to the top of the inside of the shell, and then you've got a couple of capacitors that connect to each motor, and the AC Commander package will support up to 2 motors. And then you've got all the wiring that makes it happen. And basically what you do is you strip out all of the old wiring, you do a couple modifications to the motor, and then you connect the motor to the AC Commander board, and then the AC Commander board connects to track power. And then over here, you've got a bunch of connections for several options. You've got a couple of coupler connections if you want to fire the front and rear coupler where it applies. Then you've got connections for a front and rear headlight if you want directional lighting. And you've also got a connection for a smoke unit if the engine has a smoke unit. And then on the side, there's a connection for a sound module if you want to purchase and install the additional sound module. Now, as for me, I wanted to keep the installation as simple as possible because I wanted to maintain the look and feel of the original post-war engine as much as possible. So I didn't add any extra features like a smoke unit or lighting effects or sound because to me that would sort of betray what this engine is all about. I just wanted to add simple command control so that I could run the engine from my legacy remote. So in my situation, I connected the motor to the AC commander board and the front coupler so that I can now control the engine's speed and direction and fire the coupler from the legacy remote. I left the light alone and I didn't add any extra features because that's what I wanted. Now, if you do this installation yourself, you can add whatever features you want. But as for me, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So at this point, a lot of you are probably wondering how difficult it is to do this installation. And I've received several requests from you guys asking me to do a video on how I did the installation. And I've thought about doing such a video, and I may do one in the future. But to be completely honest, the instructions that come with the board and the instructions that are on the Electric Railroad website do a great job of explaining how to do the installation. So if I did a video, it would pretty much just be me reading you the directions. I mean, there are basically 3 qualifications that you need to do this installation. Number 1, you need to be moderately familiar with electronics. Number 2, you need to know how to use a soldering iron. And number 3, you need to know how to read directions. If you can do those 3 things, you can do this installation. And if you can't, a video is probably not going to help much, and you should probably have someone else do the installation. In fact, the Electric Railroad Company will do installations. You can send them the engine, and they'll do the installation for you for an extra charge. Anyway, the installation is pretty easy, so if you're thinking about doing something like this, my advice is to not wait for me to do a video. Just jump in and do it. I think you'll find it's a lot easier than you may think, and it's fairly affordable too. This entire package is $70 on the Electric Railroad website, so it doesn't require a huge outlay of cash to do a project like this. And you know, the hardest part about doing this installation, in my opinion, is not the wiring. That's the easy part because the instructions do a pretty good job of explaining how to do the wiring. The hard part is finding a place to mount the board and the run program switch because depending on which engine you're trying to upgrade, you may or may not have a lot of real estate to work with inside the shell, and it may be hard to find a place to mount the board. Now, in an F3 like this, there's a lot of space in here, so it was fairly easy for me to find a spot to mount the board. What I did is I mounted the board and the run program switch in an existing slot that was already on the engine. So if I turn it over, you can see the screw that's used to mount the board down here. And here's that slot. And then here's the run program switch. And all I had to do was drill one new hole for the screw to hold the run program switch in place. And that was it. So it was fairly easy to mount the board up on this F3. But in contrast to that, on the other engine that I did, which is a Lionel 623 Santa Fe switcher, which I'll show you in a couple minutes, it was much more difficult because on the inside of the switcher, there's almost no real estate to mount the board to, and so it took a lot of innovative thinking and work to get a place where I could mount it and get it mounted securely. But I'll show you that in just a minute. But again, it's a fairly easy installation. My advice, if you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. It's really not that hard. Here's the Lionel 623 Santa Fe switcher, and this was also made in the early 1950s. I first showed this to you in episode 24 of my video train blog series. As you can see, cosmetically, there's still some work to do, but mechanically, I was able to get the engine working perfectly, so that made it a good candidate for the AC Commander upgrade. So let's go ahead and take off the shell and have a look. This is what the inside of the switcher looks like, and just like on the F3, I've got the AC Commander board here. The AC pull-more motor is wired into the board, and the board is connected to track power, and that's pretty much it. Now, there are a couple minor differences. The switcher does have 2 lights instead of 1 like on the F3, so I could have hooked this up for directional lighting if I wanted to, but I chose not to because, again, I wanted to maintain the original look and feel of the post-war engine. And then also, the switcher has 2 operating couplers instead of 1, and so on this installation, I hooked up both couplers to the AC Commander board so that I can throw them from the legacy remote. And again, the most difficult part of this installation was mounting up this board, because if you look inside here, there's not a lot of space. You can see the track through the inside of the engine because there's not a lot of metal to mount this board to. So what I ended up having to do was I mounted the board to this metal crossbar that the truck is connected to. But to avoid the board interfering with the movement of the truck, I had to stand the board off of that metal crossbar with some nuts. And so that's what took up the most time in this installation. After that was done, all of the wiring took maybe 30 minutes. Now, when it came to mounting up the TMCC run program switch on this particular engine, I decided to mount it right here on this metal bracket. And I did that so that when you put the shell back on, let me see if I can get this on real quick. The run program switch is right here in the back door. So this is program, and that's run. Pretty cool. Okay, the last thing I want to do before I show you these engines in action is point out that even though I did the upgrade on 2 diesels here, you can also do this upgrade on a steam engine. It really doesn't matter what kind of engine you're trying to upgrade. What matters is the type of motor that the engine has. So on an older engine that uses an AC motor, you would use the AC commander board, regardless of whether it's a Pullmore motor or a side frame motor, or whether it's in a diesel or a steam. That doesn't matter. If it's an AC motor, you use the AC commander board upgrade. And if it's a more modern engine with a DC motor, you use the DC commander upgrade. Okay, we've got power to the track, and as you can see, both engines have their lights on and they're ready to go. Now, when I run these engines, they're still going to run very much like post-war engines. And by that I mean they're not going to have some super ultra prototypical low-speed operation, and they're still going to have that familiar AC motor growl that a post-war engine should have. However, right away you're going to notice a couple differences that set these engines apart from other post-war engines. First of all, right now we've got 18 volts of power to the track. The lights are on, but the engines aren't going anywhere, and they're not emitting any kind of annoying buzz from an E-unit. They're sitting perfectly still in silence, and they will continue to do so until they receive instructions to move from the legacy system. And the other thing you're going to notice is that when I do move the engines, I'll move this one first, so this one will start moving, but this one will be still. Even though they're on the same track, powered by the same transformer, they're not going to move at the same time like post-war engines would. They're going to sit perfectly still, each one of them, until they receive instructions. So even though this one will start moving, this one will be still because it has not yet received instructions to move. So anyway, let's go ahead and roll them out. Okay, here's my legacy remote, and I've programmed the Santa Fe F3 into slot number 98. So let's go ahead and throttle it up. And it's just that easy. Now let's do the same thing for the 623 switcher. I've got that programmed into slot number 97, so I'll change to 97 and roll it out. And reverse directions. There we go. I can even run the 2 engines together as a lash-up. I've programmed them into train number 6 on my legacy remote. So there's train 6. And there they go. Finally, the last thing I want to show you is one of the couplers in action. As I said, I hooked up all the couplers to the AC commander boards so that I could throw them from the legacy remote like this. Pretty cool. Okay, that about wraps it up for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for episode 32. That should be out within the next week, and in that episode, I'll show you some examples of airbrush weathering, and that should be a lot of fun. But anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.